Hello, my friends, and welcome to your show, the MMA Gran Pound Show. I'm your host, Enrique Solorzano. And first of all, I would like to welcome you to the BarnBurner TV network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download both the BarnBurner and Zingo TV apps in the respective app store on iOS and Android devices. Both apps are free. While you download them, please make sure to rate and leave a comment. And remember that Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast and Chromecast TV sticks, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku TV sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. So, well, my friends, we have a lot of to talk about today. Finally, this Saturday, we're having MMA. We have UFC, the first event of the year, and this is pretty refreshing because we had a dry spell, so to speak, of MMA action. But finally, we're gonna getting some. So first of all, we're gonna talk about UFC Fight Night Holloway versus Qatar. My predictions. We're gonna go through the fight card, and I'm gonna let you know which fighters I'm gonna choose and why. Then we'll talk about what will be next for Holloway and Qatar. Then we will talk about the return to Fight Island. And I would like to wrap up this show by talking about the Dustin Poirier he wants to bleed. So as you can tell, this is a pretty packed show. So let's start. So first of all, UFC Fight Night Holloway versus Qatar is going to take place this Saturday, but at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Mexico City time, because it's going to take place in Fire Island in Abu Dhabi. So it's I think it's a good time, right? 3 p.m. You can order some chicken wings, some pizza. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go out to get some food, and I'm gonna watch the entire card. And yeah, it's pretty refreshing. So first of all, we have Punahele Soriano versus Dusko Todorovic in the middleweight division. So this is pretty interesting because both fighters are undefeated, and Soriano he is 7-0, while Todorovic is 10-0. So wow, like both undefeated fighters, this is gonna be a war for sure. Both of these fighters are strikers and aggressive, and so Soriano he has won 57% of his fights by knockout, while Todorovic he has won 60% of his fights by knockout. And Soriano he won his last fight in December 2019 by knockout on the first round, so he has been out a little bit more than a year. While Townsend he got the W on his last fight this past October by knockout on the second round. And it's pretty funny because Todorovic he has an impressive resume. I was reading, I was going through his information. He's a middleweight champion back in Serbia, where he's from, and he has more experience than Soriano. Also, he's fresher. He just fought in October, right? So maybe Soriano he has a little bit of ring rust with him, so we don't know. For this fight, I'm gonna go with Todorovic. Why? Because he is more experienced. He has more fights under his belt, and like I said, he's fresher. So let's see how it goes. Okay, then the second fight for the night is Joaquin Buckley versus Alessio Di Chirico in the middleweight division as well. So we're gonna start with two middleweight fights, and this is interesting as well. Buckley he has 15 fights under his belt with a record of 12-3, while Di Chirico he is more experienced. He has 17 fights under his belt, two more that Buckley, and he has a record of 12-5. So both these fighters, Buckley, he's the more aggressive fighter, and he has won his fights 75% of the times by knockout. So 3 out of 4, if you want to see it like that. But why? What about the Chirico? So the Chirico, he's a striker too, but he's more than a submission specialist. Like he has won 33% of his fights this way. And Buckley, he has won two of his last three fights. He lost against Kevin Holland. Who is Kevin Holland? Kevin Holland is last year's rising star. Uh, this guy who has been very active, he fought five times last year and won all of them. So, and then Chirico, he has won two of his last five fights. So he's in a tough spot. He's in a three-loss streak. So he needs this. He needs to get the W. He needs this win. And for this fight, I think I'm gonna go with Buckley. Why? Because he's more experienced, even though he's like two more fights more experienced than the Chirico. Sorry, even though he's not as experienced as this Chirico, I think he's more fresh, right? So let's see how it goes with that fight, and it's gonna be pretty interesting. The middleweight division needs more movement, right? It's a little bit stale at the moment. Okay, so now let's go with the next fight of the night. So Santiago Poncinibio versus Li Qingliang on the welterweight division. So if you don't know who Santiago Poncinibio is, he's a very aggressive fighter. He's a very good fighter from Argentina, and he was a rising star 2 years ago, but he has been out more than a year. He's a very experienced fighter with 31 fights under his belt, and he has a record of 28-3. So he has lost just three times, which is impressive. And what about Jing Lian? So Jing Lian, he is not as experienced as Poncinibio. He has only 23 fights, and he has a record of 17-6. Both of them are the same height, but Poncinibio, like I said, he's the more aggressive fighter. He has finished his fights by knockout 52% of the times. And Jing Lian, he's aggressive too, but 29% of those times when he has fought, he has left it to the judges. And Poncinibio, he doesn't like that, right? And Poncinibio, he has won his last five fights. But like I said, he has been out more than a year, so maybe he has some ring rust with him. So let's see how he performs. The last time he fought, he beat Neil Magny, which is a very successful fighter in the welterweight division. And Neil Magny is an up and coming fighter, even though he has been in the UFC for some time. He's a very good fighter, and he's a tough challenge for sure. So what about Jing Lian? So Jing Lian, he has won two of his last three fights, and he lost his last one against Neil Magny in March 2020. So it's pretty funny if we do MMA math, which doesn't work most of the time. Poncinibio is going to beat Jing Lian for sure, because he already beat the one who beat Jing Lian. But like I said, that doesn't work. So Poncinibio, he's very popular among Latin American fans, and he wants to deliver to them. So for this one, I think I'm going with Poncinibio. Like I said, he has to deliver to his fans, and he's more hungry. So I'm rooting for him, and I hope he gets the W. Okay, so let's move on to the co-main event of the evening. So for this one, we have Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown on the welterweight division. So on these guys are warriors, and they are UFC veterans. Matt Brown is more aggressive. He has finished his fights by knockout 63% of the times, while Condit, he is more balanced, right? He has finished his fights by knockout or decision, and he has left it to the judges only 10% of the times. So, like I said, they're veterans, and it's not a secret that both fighters are past their primes, but they're very popular. They move the needle, like Dana White will say. So let's go to the records. Matt Brown has 41 fights under his belt, and he has a record of 24-17, while Condit, he has 43 fights and a record of 31-13. Condit, he has lost his last two out of three fights, and he won his last fight in October by decision, while Brown, he has won two of his last three fights. So maybe he's coming up. He's in a resurgence, so to speak. But he lost his last fight in May. This fight is a coin. Is tossing a coin in the air because both fighters are very aggressive and they want to get it. So I don't know. For this one, I think I will go with Condit because he has a higher fight IQ, and yeah, it's not that Matt Brown doesn't have good fight IQ, but he goes more, he's a little bit more aggressive, so maybe he will lose, right? Okay, so now let's move off to the main event of the evening. So Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar in the featherweight division. So this fight is going to be pretty interesting because Max Holloway, he is the number one contender, and Calvin Kattar, he is ranked number 6. But check this out: Max Holloway, he has 27 fights, and Kattar, he has 26. Even though Holloway has been champ and he has been in the UFC for a while, but he's very young. And check this out: Holloway has lost 6 times, while Kattar has lost only 4. And Holloway has won 21 times, while Kattar has won 22 more times. So Kattar has won more times than the former champ. This is a pretty interesting thing if we look at it, right? And both of them are very aggressive. They like to finish their fights. Holloway has finished his fights at 48% of the times by knockout, and Kattar 50%. So Kattar is a little bit more aggressive if you want to see it like that. And about Holloway, he lost his last fight, his last 2 fights against Alex Volkanovski, right? For some fans, those fights were very controversial, and even though they were a robbery, for me, I wouldn't go that far. I think that if you want to beat the champ, you have to beat the champ. So, before that, he beat Frankie Edgar. So, yeah, we know how Max Holloway is. He's a very, very good fighter. And how about Calvin Kattar? So, Kattar, he won his last 2 fights, and he beat Jeremy Stephens in May, and he lost the last time in July. So he's a little bit fresh. And for this one, I think I will go with, wow, this is a rough one. I'm gonna go with Max Holloway. He wants to get that shot at the title again, and I think he will do everything to get it. Okay, so now let's talk about what will be next for Holloway and Kattar. Okay, so like I said, for Holloway, if he gets the W on this fight, he deserves a title shot. But the thing is that the fight against Alex Volkanovski is not very entertaining, and I don't think it will sell, right? For Kattar, if he wins, if he gets W, he I think he could face Jair Rodriguez or Brian Ortega, right? And over here, I like in the UFC rankings, like you can see a lot of guys that deserves a title shot. Like Brian Ortega, I think he will fight Volkanovski soon. Jair Rodriguez, one of my favorite fighters, he deserves a shot at the title, I think. And we have Zabit Magomed Sharipov, and we have to make that fight, Rodriguez versus Magomed Sharipov. That fight needs to happen. But like I said, Kattar, he has a lot to win. He has nothing to lose. So if he gets the W, he will get a shot at the title for sure after Ortega. And Qatar, he's sorry, Holloway, he's in a tough spot because if if he wins, I don't think Dana White will give him the title shot. So I think Holloway will have to fight. I don't know, Brian Ortega if he loses against Volkanovski, or Magomed Sharipov or Jai Rodriguez. That fight will be pretty interesting as well because it's not like a Jai Rodriguez's style is very very peculiar, right? Particular. So if he fights with Max Holloway, that will be something very very interesting for us uh, MMA fans. So that's what will be next for the fans. Sorry, for these gentlemen, Max Holloway and Calvin Qatar. Okay, so I think as you may know, now we're going back to Fight Island. So we're gonna the UFC will kick off this year going back to Fight Island. So what is Fight Island? So Fight Island is a venue, is in an island in Abu Dhabi that the UFC came up with when the pandemic started last year. And they did that because there were a lot of restrictions, right? So not a lot of fighters were admitted in the States. So what they did is they moved to another country where the restrictions were looser than in the States, and they can fly in fighters from all around the world. Because I don't know if you remember the first fights were only with fighters in the States, right? That's why we had Tony Ferguson versus Joyce Geji, because Khabib, he couldn't fly to the States. So, well, they came up with this thing, and it was pretty interesting because when they announced this, a lot of people, like we fans, thought about like I don't know, the islands in movies starred by Jean Claude Van Damme, something like that. So this venue is pretty cool, right? And we're gonna have three events on this island: UFC Fight Night Holloway versus Qatar this Saturday. Then we're gonna have UFC Fight Night Chiesa versus Magny on January 20th, and then they're gonna wrap up this event with UFC 257 Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor 2 on January 24th. And the thing that is pretty interesting is that there are tickets on sale. They are sold out. So if you wanted to go to Abu Dhabi and watch one of these fights, I'm sorry, there are no more tickets available. And yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. So the name of the island is Jazz Island in Abu Dhabi. And yeah, like the tickets were very expensive. They started like at to $15, and I think they went up to 6,000. But it's gonna be limited seating because of the pandemic, and they have to be careful about that, right? So the UFC is going back to Fight Island, and it's gonna be awesome. Everything looks incredible. Okay, so let's wrap up this show by talking about this thing that Dustin Poirier wants to bleed. So during an interview, Dustin Poirier, some a journalist asked Dustin Poirier about his game plan against Conor McGregor, right, for this fight, and he said, "I want us both bleeding within the first minute," which is interesting because you have to be very careful how you approach a fight, obviously. And I think 2 days ago, I watched with my mom Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. And I know some people don't like Conor McGregor. I love him. He's one of my favorite fighters and a mentor because what he did against Jose Aldo is incredible. It's incredible. Like he destroyed Jose Aldo, the champ, in 13 seconds. And Jose Aldo, he was in a winning streak and he defended the belt for many, many years. So if you're gonna go out without a game plan, you're gonna lose. And also, something that is very important for fighters, it's to take care of themselves, especially like if they have like some concussions, things like that. It could have repercussions, and I think we're seeing that with Diego Sanchez, who has been in a lot of wars like during these years, right? So he says he wants to bleed. For me, I don't think that's the smartest approach. And I'm gonna read it to you. I want us both to be bleeding and really have to dig down and see who's the better fighter, and see who really wants to be in there. He said, because I don't have a safety net. I want to be in there, and I know that, and I would like to find out if he does. So, Dustin, if you go like that, yeah, you're gonna see who's the toughest, but maybe you won't get the W. Well, my friends, so that was everything for today. I would like to remind you about UFC Fight Night Holloway versus Qatar at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We have UFC this weekend. Don't miss it. And remember to tune in Mondays for results and analysis and Wednesdays for predictions and analysis at 7 p.m. Follow BarnBurner at follow BarnBurner Network at BarnBurner. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and remember, this is a conversation. Let me know what you think at Enrique Drums MX. This show can also be heard on the BarnBurner Radio Network on its 122 platforms. Please check out barburner.ca for all the news. BarnBurner, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, leave it. I'll see you